Hi there, this is Teri from Stamping Magic. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have another Christmas card to share with you. This one is a side step card. I've used the Perfectly Plaid stamp set and coordinating wrapped in plaid designer series paper. Inside there's a panel to write your message. Now, about a year ago, I uploaded a different video showing you how I created this card, and I'll put a link to it in the top right of the screen. I used the Winterwoods stamp set and coordinating dies. Now, my video only gave you measurements for people who use A4 as your standard cardstock, and the measurements were in metric. For today's video, I'll give you those same metric measurements again in case you want to recreate this card, but I'm also going to give measurements for anyone who uses 8.5 by 11 as their standard cardstock size. So those measurements will be in inches. So let's get started. These are all the measurements you need for the various elements required to create this project. So if you're interested in reproducing it, you can take a screenshot and refer to it later. The first thing we're going to do is make a partial cut down the center of the cardstock. So if you use A4, you want to line the left side up at 7.4 centimeters. Then you're going to cut from 4 centimeters to 18.5 centimeters. If your standard card is 8.5 inch by 11 inch, you want to line your left side up at 2 3/4 inches and cut from 1 3/4 inches to 7.5 inches. So you'll have a wider uncut piece on one end than the other. Now I'm going to score using my Simply scoreboard, and because I use A4 cardstock as my standard, I'm going to add the metric plate. Bear with me, I'll go through the 8.5 by 11 scoring in a minute. So place your card into the scoreboard with the long side across the top and the widest section uncut on the left side. Score down at 4 centimeters, 8 centimeters, 12 centimeters, 16 and 18.5 centimeters, and your first and last score line should meet the start and the end of that cut line. Turn your cardstock around and then score down at 10.5 centimeters. For anyone using 8.5 by 11 inch standard card, again, you don't need the metric plate this time, so just place your card into the scoreboard with the long side across the top, and you want the widest solid piece on the left, okay, which is your 1 3/4 inch section. Now you're going to score down at 1 3/4, 3.5, 5 inches, 6.5 inches, and 7.5 inches. And again, your first and last score line will meet the start and the end points of that cut line. Turn your card around and then score down at 4.25 inches, just to the cut line. I'm now going to fold and burnish all the score lines. Starting on the left hand side, you want to make that one single score line a mountain fold. On the right hand side, you want to concertina them, starting with a mountain fold. Then, using your bone folder, make sure you burnish each fold really well. This will help your card to stay standing up and stop it collapsing flat on the table. Now, I use A4 card, remember. This, if you use 8.5 inch by 11 inch card, this is how your base card will finish up. You can see it's narrower than the A4 one, but it's slightly taller. Your steps will also look slightly different. They will step up towards the back, whereas the A4 users, the last two are level. It doesn't matter, they'll be covered anyway. This is what the Perfectly Plaid stamp set looks like. And I'm using this tree, the acorns, and the Merry Christmas sentiment. Because my stamp set is photopolymer, I'll be stamping on my foam mat. And I'm going to be using cherry cobbler ink. I'm going to start with my sentiment and just stamp it onto a piece of scrap normal weight Whisper White. I'm prepping one end of the cardstock with my embossing buddy because one of the trees will be embossed in gold. Now I need 3 trees in cherry cobbler, and again I'm stamping on a normal weight Whisper White cardstock. Then for my last tree I'm going to stamp using the Delicata Golden Glitz ink. Then I can cover it with gold embossing powder. I've cut out a blank label from normal weight Whisper White using one of the rectangle stitch dies, the smallest one, and I'm stamping this with 3 cherry cobbler pine cones. Now you want to leave this to dry completely before adding the detailed stamp for the pine cones, and I'm using the Golden Glitz ink again. And then I'll also cover this with gold embossing powder. Then using my heat tool I can melt the powder on both the tree and the pine cones. All the trees will be punched out using the coordinating pine tree punch. I've gone ahead and added dimensionals onto the back of my pinecone strip, both my oval mats, one of the red trees and my gold tree. I used the Stitched Shapes ovals framelets to cut out my sentiment, and this is the second size up, and then to cut out my shaded spruce mat I used the third size up. I used the layering oval dies, the scallop ones, to cut out the gold mats underneath, the third size up for my sentiment, and the 5th size up to go behind my shaded spruce. I've also embossed the shaded spruce mat using the Swirls and Curls embossing folder. The red tree with the dimensionals on the back can now be added to the shaded spruce oval. I've already prepped the other panels. Now the first one is for the left hand side, and that goes under the shaded spruce oval, and this is just a gold foil mat and then designer series paper. The next two, this is for the back panel, and that's where you're going to place the trees, and the middle panel is the square one, and they have 3 layers. So there's a cherry cobbler mat, a gold foil mat, and then designer series paper. The little one is just gold foil with designer series paper. Now when you place the sentiment, you want to place it towards the top of that square panel, otherwise you won't see the whole sentiment when the card is closed, when they take it out of the envelope. So make sure you place that towards the top. I can now go ahead and add the pinecone strip to that smallest panel. Then I can position the sentiment onto the square middle panel. I can also position the 3 trees onto the back panel, and again I'm going to position them towards the top more, so when the card is closed the tops of the trees will peek over that middle square panel. I'm using our gold metallic edged ribbon, and this has vanilla in the centre, but I'm going to colour it. I'm going to use my dark Cherry Cobbler Stampin' Blends alcohol marker to colour that vanilla to Cherry Cobbler. Now when you've done this, you want to leave it to dry completely before using it. I'm going to use tear and tape to secure that little bit of ribbon that we've just coloured, and I'm adding this on the reverse right down at the bottom, just 2 small strips, and I'll remove the backing ready. I'm making a bunny ear bow from the longer piece of ribbon, so I've just made 2 loops and I've passed the left over the right and through the middle, and then just pulled it tight. It's just about the simplest bow you can create, and then I can trim the ends. Now once the smaller strip of ribbon's dry, you can wrap that around the bottom of the panel, and this is about 1/4 of an inch up from the bottom edge. I'm just cutting off the excess, and then I can add 2 more small pieces of tear and tape onto the back just to secure it. Then this panel can be added to the left side of the card base. And then the oval panel can also be added. The inside panel can also be added now. And if you wanted to stamp a sentiment on this, do that before you stick it inside. Next, I'm going to attach the back panel, and this will be secured to the second section down on the right hand side. Now when it's in place, the top of it should be level with the left hand side. So I'm going to add glue to that second section and then position my panel so the bottom edge is just above the score line. Now for the middle panel. So I'm going to skip a panel and then add my glue to the next one. And again, I'm going to position it so the bottom edge is just above that score line. And then you can add the strip of pine cones, and this is just glued flat to that bottom section. Finally, I can add my bow, and I'm using glue dots for this. I'm adding one in the middle on the back and then one either side of this. Then I can position this onto the centre of that ribbon strip. And you may also want to add another glue dot under the centre of that ribbon strip. That will stop the bow moving at all. And the last thing I'm going to do is add some of our metallic gold pearls to the tree. And that's it, it's all finished. It's a really pretty card. I do like these step cards. And here's another look at my original one. I just reversed the colours that I used on my original card for my new one. And then I did make one more. I used the Dashing Deer stamp set for this one and the coordinating Detailed Deer Thinlet dies. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Bye for now.